Okay, everybody. This is Christopher Landon, the director of Freaky. We are going to walk you through this crazy little movie. Starting right off the bat, I have a bad habit of always fucking with the Universal logo. So this time I made it blood red, and that was so that it could match the color of the glowing red eye in the Dola, which, by the way, Easter egg right there, the little girl is holding the magical dagger that is featured in this movie. It was a fun little Easter egg that I got to pop in here. And title cards. Here we go.
Moves through this town, unseen, like a ghost.
So Laurie Rose, the DP of this movie, did a beautiful job. Really wanted this to have kind of a cool, slightly retro vibe to it. A little bit of a sort of homage to 90s slasher movies. So that was kind of our vibe. And this actor you're looking at right now even feels like Zach from Saved by the Bell.
Didn't the butcher also kill a bunch of kids at prom way back when?
Not prom, homecoming. All the bliss.
I will say,
are centered around homecoming.
hats off to everybody in this movie, because we shot this movie in Atlanta in the winter, and nobody told me that it's really, really fucking cold there. So every night that we were shooting stuff outside, we were all freezing to death. I think it was about 26 degrees this night. It was a little bit tough. So we shot this sequence at this massive old estate that was actually also a horse farm. It was really beautiful. And the idea here was that Jenny's father, this is where the house is set, it's her father, is an art collector. So we had to source all of these like cool artifacts and things. And then of course we have our Dola, which is our mystical Aztecian dagger. Did a lot of fun research with our production designer Hillary to try and sort of figure out the right vibe for this. We went with a bone handle with a jewel set in one eye, and then there's inscription that's actually on the dagger that's in Spanish, which is supposed to be a warning that was inscribed many, many years after the dagger was created. That was sort of our mythology there. Now we're going down into the artifact basement. This was just basically a big shell that was underneath this house. It was amazing, like sort of kismet-wise, how many cool things we ended up finding in this house that just sort of fit perfectly into the story. Whenever you're location scouting, you're always trying to check as many boxes as you can, but often you have to make huge compromises and write to the changes that are required based on the locations that you find if you can't build sets. And this house was amazing. It just had so many unique spaces in it, and this truly gigantic basement came in handy because we were able to do a lot of cool stuff down here and really fill it with all of these props.
Ratchet? Oh shit. Yeah, nice one, Sandra. You made me drop it.
We're about to get into our first big kill in the movie. I think probably every director says this, and it's usually true. I try to do as many things as we can in camera and practically, just because I think it looks better. It's always cooler. I think the naked eye can kind of spot the seams and the differences between what's physically real and what's digital. So, we had part of this, which is dummy, and then jamming this bottle down into this dummy's mouth. But then, of course, we had to do a little bit of a digital bit there on the neck bulge. But then we go back to practical. So that's the real actor. And it's pretty gruesome, and it looks really cool. I really wanted this movie to be different from the Happy Death Day films in terms of gore and violence, because I felt like part of the sell of this movie is really going for some of that stuff. And so the other writer, Michael Kennedy, and I, when we wrote the script, we felt like let's open this movie with a lot of violence and just sort of do it back to back. Just really go for sort of like the tropes of an opening, you know, set piece in a classic slasher film. So, you know, we're smashing heads in toilets. That was a set, by the way, that we built, that bathroom. But yeah, we really wanted this to just sort of be in many ways, a send-up of the classic, you know, opening sequence in a horror film.
Can we go 3 more minutes? That's all I need. You know, that's really inconsistent.
But there's a little bit, it's pretty tongue-in-cheek. I think we're winking at the audience quite a bit through this, especially when you kill people like that. One of my favorite things to do is to kill people in movies, of course, in weird ways. So I thought, tennis racket, why not? And it's kind of bougie, so it fit the setting. We had 2 takes of that. That's all we could pull off. That's the other thing about low-budget movies, and this is sort of relatively low budget. When you do stunts like people smashing through glass doors, like you really don't have very many opportunities to pull that off because it's a time suck. The resets are long and it's very time consuming. So you really have to cross your fingers that you're going to get it right the first time, and maybe you get to do it a second time. And so I do believe actually we only did that stunt once and we got it on the first try. So it takes a lot of coordination and a lot of people who are smarter than I am to pull that off. So this was another shockingly bizarre and unique feature of this house. I had written that Ginny hides in a fur closet. So it was sort of like a closet behind a closet. And of course, we were talking about having to build it. And then when we went and scouted this location, I found this closet. And lo and behold, there was a secret door, which you're about to see, that was behind this closet. It wasn't like a secret fur closet. It was actually a hatch that's designed for people to bring wood into the house from outside. So that beyond that door is just like a little mud room, basically, but there's a big drop off in there. So we had to build a platform for our actor to stand on so that she could hide and wait for her cue to come through. But like, this is an example of a crazy unique feature that we found in this house that worked perfectly for our story. And I was thrilled to find that.
Daddy.
This was another one of our complicated stunts, which at first glance doesn't seem too complicated, but you know, this was all stuffed on a wire where we're having to sort of spin her around in a 180 arc, which is actually really complicated to do on wires. But I'm really happy with the end result. And now we're getting into the more mystical aspect of the movie and really selling that this mystical dagger is calling to the butcher. The idea that it draws evil to it.
I did.
Better not have voiceover.
These actors were so fun to work with. They loved doing this scene. It's super classic, like old school, hammy, over the top and fun. And I love it. You know, it's goofy as hell and I love it. And then our really cool 3D title. So now we get to meet Millie Kessler for the first time. And again, a shout out to my production designer, Hilary Andajar. She really gave Millie's whole room such a specific vibe and personality. And one of the things that we talked about was this idea that she's still a character who's caught between, you know, being a girl, a young girl, and a woman. And so her room reflects that. It's just an explosion of sort of like little girl things and stuffed animals and pink and flowers, but it also has, you know, other things that are sort of pointing towards someone who's maturing. But I just love telling stories through sets and through props and through wardrobe. I think you learn so much about a character by the environment that they live in and the clothes that they wear. You know, that's how we sort of figure people out when we meet them. We get a sense of their personalities by what they're wearing and, you know, what they're drawn to.
We're going to see Wicked at the Annis Theater. Annis.
Wow.
What?
Nothing. It just seems a little weird to miss out on a seminal
I love
experience.
shooting
See shit regional theater.
table scenes
Oh, I'm sorry. Aren't
because
you supposed to discourage her from things
they're
like
relatively easy to execute. And with 3 characters, it's a lot of coverage, but it's not total murder. But on a lower budget movie, sometimes these scenes can be a big time suck when you're shooting them. But you know, these are all wonderful actors. You know, we've got
I gotta go.
Dana, who plays Charlene there, she was just really cool and really fun to work with. Uh-oh, mom's a drunk. So we wanted to tee up this idea that this is a family that's really struggling after the loss of Millie's dad. And her mom is, you know, going through her own shit. Okay, I do love a clock tower. I'm not gonna lie. I have a weird tendency to put them in my movies. I don't know why. But a lot of my movies are also sort of always have a ticking clock element to them. So I think you kind of have to really land that early on. And now we meet Nyla and Josh. And he makes a really inappropriate joke here.
The dog is black.
But he's sneaky.
Let's go.
We really wanted this character, Michael and I, the writer, we really wanted Josh to be like a really confident out character, you know, not someone who's struggling with his sexuality, someone who owns it completely and, you know, can go to high school and bring a big tote with gold bedazzles on it and not give a fuck. And it was a lot of fun.
Sounds kind of rapey.
Good.
Shout out to the app maker Grindr, who gave us permission to use their app as long as Josh was 18. So thank you, Grindr. It was very kind of you. It's nice when you get to actually use real world apps and you don't have to make up fake shit, because it sucks when you have to do that. So that was cool.
You're a fucking piece, girl.
Oh, I'm a piece. Huh? Okay, barf choice of words or not. Josh was right.
So this was a real high school in Atlanta. It was actually, we were shooting there when school was in session, which is always a challenge. You know, typically you try to find high schools that are abandoned or closed and, you know, but they're usually pretty run down. And this was actually a brand new high school. It was a beautiful high school. It was like really fancy for a public school. I remember on our tour, it had like a spin class and I was like, Jesus, I want to go here. But they were very gracious and very kind to us. And you know, it was so, it was amazing that they allowed us to shoot there, because it really helps that it looks and feels like a real high school, because it is.
I'll see you at lunch, okay? I love you. I love you.
So part of the challenge, though, of shooting in a real location is, you know, you deal with these hallways. This hallway in particular was all white, barring these blue lockers. And so again, our production team, they came in and they had to at least paint that blue band on the lower half of the walls so that you're just not staring at a ton of white. It's very bouncy and it doesn't look very good. So it helped a bit. But there's a whole lot of blue in this world.
Thanks. Where'd you get it? I don't know.
And of course, the Mean Girls.
I saw it at discount.
I love a mean girl. So here we have Ryler.
Did your mom use your play discount?
I think
Anyway,
at least most gay writers will tell you that they love to write really bitchy girls because most gay men are bitchy girls. And then we meet Booker, played by Uriah, which is Millie's crush. It's the classic sort of jock with a heart of gold role, but Uriah was great because he just brought like a genuine sensitivity to the part, which I think is great. He's just a very likable person, and I think it really shows on screen.
Be the ultimate pooch pet.
So here we have a really complicated situation, which I'm going to try and point out if I can. So when we shot this scene, you know, we have this shot where we pull back and reveal the room, and this is sort of the master that we end up in. So the problem was we really needed a crane, like a little techno crane, to pull this shot off properly, but we couldn't afford it. So we had to just put the camera on a dolly on some dance floor and pull it back. But what that left us with was a ton of paint out on the floor, because what was on the floor in the middle of the aisle here were these sort of like, you know, these big plywood boards. So the digital gods had to paint all that stuff out. And so if you pay super close attention to Mr. Bernardi, played by Alan Ruck, he is walking on those boards right now, and you'll see a slight step down there. And that's him coming off the board. So this is a lesson to people out there making movies. Sometimes when you think you're saving money, you're spending more. If we got the crane in the first place, that would have saved us a bundle, instead of having to pay so much money to get it digitally removed, because it all becomes a really expensive VFX thing. So, you know, if you want a certain kind of shot, you know, try and convince people that they're going to save money if they do it the right way the first time. That's not a judgment or a criticism to anyone in particular.
I'm in shock. I just saw Sandra 2 days ago in PE. And now she's...
Oh my God, it's a...
So we're doing, the set here was supposed to be the Crucible, which I thought was kind of fun, that they sort of like these three misfits hide out in the theater at high school. It's a callback to my own sort of high school years. My close friends, we all kind of hid in a weird little hallway and ate lunch there every day for all 4 years of my high school. So a lot of the stuff that I put into my movies is actually personal. And this threesome, this relationship here is quite personal. It's definitely a little slice of my teen years.
Homecoming is like Christmas around here. They're not canceling it.
So, homecoming, football game, always fun. I don't know anything about football. I don't really watch it. I don't know jack shit about it, but it looks real. So that's cool. So this mascot, the beaver mascot, you know, it's just really funny and looks awesome. And our costume designer, Whitney, she pulled this off, and it looks fantastic. And also, I just knew that eventually we were going to be building to a set piece where you know, Millie is going to get chased by the butcher. And the idea of her having to run in this costume with those giant beaver feet just was really funny to me. It's such a cumbersome costume that it would slow anybody down. It's sort of anyone's worst nightmare if they're being chased by a maniac with a knife.
There's a psycho roaming free.
This was another freezing night. I'm going to talk about weather a lot. Apologies, but it just, I cannot tell you how bad it was, how cold it was. Like, it gets into your bones and it just makes you want to curl up and die. And if you look up off behind them to the left, those were like the locker rooms, which is where we often would like go and hide to like warm up. But it was also a real functioning operating locker room. And we had to bring in like a special, like almost like a hazmat team to come in and get the smell of stink. It was just full on sock stink in there. It was beyond gross. But that's where we would hide sometimes to get out of the cold. Oh, so Swan Song again. Mom's favorite Chardonnay. Part of the fun of making movies and dealing with props and whatnot is actually having to create products, because you can't get certain things cleared. And sometimes you get to have some fun with naming stuff. And I always like to be pretty hands-on when it comes to that stuff, because there's always ways to tuck little sneaky jokes into the movie. And there are many, many, many of them in this movie. So you should keep your eyes peeled for that, because we tried to put as many in as we could.
Gotta be kidding me right now.
So this sequence we actually had to shoot on opposite ends of our schedule. So we started to shoot this whole sequence, starting with all the stuff on the football field and then all through here. But we had a night where we had very, very, very strong winds, and it became too dangerous to continue shooting because all of our lights were, they could topple over and crush somebody. Very dangerous. So we had to shut down and then come back, which is always really difficult, and especially difficult for a movie of our size because of the cost that is associated with that. But, you got to do what you got to do to keep people safe. So all of this stuff is kind of things that we shot from at the beginning of the schedule, and then some of it is stuff that we shot at the very end of the schedule.
With a gun!
Lori lit the shit out of this, and it looks really good. And then, of course, you've got like little stunts and gags that we have to do, like this gate bit, which on the first time we shot here, we were not prepared to do this. We tried the gate. We didn't have the right kind of lock to break. We couldn't keep the gate fixed properly. It wasn't working. So that was something that we actually had to come back and reshoot at the end of the schedule to make that gag work. And it's funny because it looks like the simplest thing in the world, and in some ways it was, but yet sometimes things just get botched and you have to come back and do them again, but it looks great now. So again, keeping your eyes peeled for funny, weird gags. There are these banners, these like advertisement banners that are hanging in front of where Millie is hiding right now. And when you get a good look at them, you'll see that one is for manure, and the other one is for like hospice care. So they're kind of sick, dark jokes. But, I just thought like those are the only kinds of people that this small town could get to advertise at their football game. So you'll see them, I think, when she pops out here. Yep. Blissfield Hospice. That's so fucked up. Sorry. I have a dark side. So this sequence, while we were in pre-production, and probably just about a week and a half out from shooting, I had this sudden idea because of this dagger to actually pull this crazy little thing off, which is this, revealing that Millie is actually on top of an Aztec pyramid on a sacrificial sort of platform. And it was an idea that popped into my head, and I knew that it was going to look super cool if I could pull it off, but I was also afraid that it would get shut down because of cost. And so I don't think I actually wrote it into the actual script. I kind of kept it a secret, and then on the day, we just brought out a green screen and we put our actors on it because I knew that I was going to do it, and I just didn't want someone to try and stop me from doing it. And by the way, I should not be admitting this because it sounds irresponsible and sneaky, but sometimes you have to kind of do sneaky things that you know are going to look great and work. So that's one of those things that I did. That was a little bit of craftiness on my part, but it paid off because I do think it's incredibly cool. And it's in the trailer, so I think other people thought it looked cool.
There's plenty of people around. Should be here.
So this shot, Laurie and I talked a lot about these kinds of moments in this film. These sort of like, I love the simplicity of the shot, and sort of there's a certain kind of, almost feels like an oil painting in some ways to me. And then of course we have our Dola come in that we track. But it's actually one of my favorite bits in the movie. And Bear McCreary, who did the score for the movie, always delivers, and he really sort of nails that moment. In fact, I mean, Bear, this is my third movie with Bear. He did both Happy Death Days, and he's just the coolest guy in the world to work with. Now this bit here, this was a set that we built so that we could actually pull this shot off. This was meant to be a much bigger thing, and then we just couldn't afford to do it, because what I had originally shot was while she's laying there in the bath with the towel over her face, she starts to hear whispers, and then I was going to cut to the butcher's lair and show the butcher arriving at, his place, and then he hears the same whispers that she's hearing and walks up to a broken mirror, and his reflection is replaced by Millie's reflection, and he reaches out to touch her, to touch this girl's reflection, and then we would intercut with Millie in the bathtub as the butcher's hand reached out and touched her face, and it was this like eerie, ominous, like it was supposed to sort of be something that was foretelling what was to come, but it was more than we could afford, so I had to cut it and just hope that everybody sort of bought the transition through the sequence that you just watched. So now we're in another wake up, and Laurie and I talked about tweaking. It's something that I kind of played with a little bit on the Happy Death Day movies with these wake ups, was sort of, even though they're very similar, the way that they're shot, the way that they look, we still kind of tweaked the lighting just a little bit. So this one's just a little bit darker than the previous one. And this is where Kathryn Newton really gets to start flexing her muscles as an actor. This is a really tough role because, she's obviously just playing sort of an average, shy teenage girl at the beginning of the film, but then she has to become this whole other person, and the role is very physical. She has very little dialogue for a majority of the movie. And so all of this was just her having to really embrace the physicality of the role and what this man is like, this maniac. And it was great because I got to, Vince and Kathryn worked closely together to really work on each other's mannerisms and the physicality of the roles. I made video diaries with them so that they could study each other, and then we did a lot of rehearsals in person. But I really loved watching Kathryn really throw herself into this part. So the Butcher's Lair, this was another really fun set to create because it was really meant to be almost like a parody of a maniac's lair. Like there's so many classic old films from the 80s. There's one that really inspired this movie called Maniac, which is an incredibly crazy, violent film. I think it was William Lustig, but it's... he had all the classic, mannequins that are have been sort of defiled. And just for me, this was just really leaning into the tropes here. This character having to wake up in this environment that is just utterly terrifying. It just, for me, helped push the comedy even further. And this is the first time that Vince Vaughn is Millie.
You were just hallucinating?
Hey, you got any jelly beans?
I'm sorry, do I have jelly beans?
You know, ice cubes, Crunchy Munch, some drugs, man.
Oh, my God. No, I don't have any drugs. I'm not a drug person. May I ask you a question?
What?
Yeah, just, you know, I'm just curious. What do I look like? Like when you're seeing me right now? Do I look like a, you know, do I look like a girl?
Girl?
Yeah. You know, like 5'5", very petite, blonde.
The thing that I love about Vince is that he's such a brave and fearless actor, and he doesn't. I love him in this movie because he's not trying to. It's not a parody of a girl. You know, he's not pretending to be a girl. Like, he really became a girl. And plays the emotion of that as well. Like, I think that's part of what makes the movie work, is that both actors had to really kind of play this stuff, even though it's heightened. They have to play it kind of straight.
Hey, sweetie. I didn't see you there. You're like a little ninja. Come on. Come on, I made you breakfast.
So Mom, played by Katie Finneran. Katie is an actor that I have long admired. She's a very well-known Broadway star, and she was also on a show called Bloodline, which I'm a big fan of.
Got you some fresh pineapple. You know how much you love it.
But I love Katie's balance with the humor and also the sort of sentimental nature of her character, Coral. Like, she's just this desperately needy mom, you know, who's trying to make up for all of her fuck-ups as a parent. So she, like, makes these over-the-top meals with tons of food.
Crispy like you like it.
And, you know, poor Catherine had to really stuff her face. Which, again, I try not to make actors do things like this too many times, too many takes. So I think we got that in a couple takes.
Hey, Mrs. Gay.
Hi, Frank.
I was gonna stick.
And then there's Frank the mailman, who
Oh, okay.
many of you will recognize from the Grindr app earlier. This guy was a total sport, man, because we took so many weird pictures of him for his Grindr profile. We did like a whole photo shoot like outside, and he was in all of these like leather harnesses and all kinds of really weird sexual gear, and I'm pretty sure the neighbors were watching and probably wondering what kind of a weird porno we were making. But yeah, he was awesome and so funny.
Okay.
Ah! I love that bit. It always makes me laugh.
Have a good day, honey. Be safe.
Thanks, Mom.
So this was like
You should go and get some more rest.
my little sort of mini, it's weird, it may not even land for people, but sort of a mini homage to Frankenstein, you know, where the butcher is just repeating these one-word answers, you know, school, friends. But again, just wanting to keep the butcher's dialogue to a minimum, and make it more about the sort of physicality. And also because the butcher is still a human being who is processing his situation. And he's just now starting to discover that being in this young girl's body might actually be a big advantage because, you know, she is a wolf in sheep's clothing. By the way, you're looking at that golf cart. I'm sure you are. That was not ours. That was a golf cart that was owned by this guy who owned the coffee shop down the block who refused to move it. It drives me crazy every time I see it. Oh, because it looks like we put it there. That was a take we did many, many times, and Vince wanted that to feel more impactful, and he actually asked the stunt driver to physically hit him with the car, which gave me a heart attack because he really got bumped pretty good by that car. But Vince is like, you know, he's 6'3", 6'4". He's like just a brick house. But that was a really fun scene to shoot. I love when he screams. It's so good. So, you know, now we're getting into the stuff with Millie, trying to sort of, the butcher in Millie's body is trying to figure out, like, you know, how am I going to use this body to my advantage? I need to sort of look a certain way. And then she, he's going through her closet and finding frumpy sweaters and hates it until, of course, he finds this. And I always like to talk about wardrobe. And again, shout out to Whitney for really sourcing cool stuff for this. When you have an actor, part of this is character stuff. Like, what would the butcher want to wear? He'd want to be in comfortable clothes, but still kind of wants to use this body to his advantage. So he wants to be a little bit sexy. But again, we also look at things like, what are we going to need as we go through production here? So like, we're going to be doing a lot of stunts. So we know that we're going to have to hide stuff under these clothes. You're going to have like a harness and padding. And so, you've got to go with clothes that can hide stuff. So like, we could never put Catherine in a dress, and I didn't really believe that the butcher would wear a dress anyway. So here we are with this look. This was a sequence I really enjoyed shooting. It was one of the first sort of things that I had really sort of boarded out in my brain. And I'm really, really pleased with how this turned out. I think it's a really cool, kind of iconic moment in the film when she does this sort of arrival. And I love just being on her back for a majority of it, because there is a bit of a sort of a look reveal when she finally walks through those doors. So this is some magical editing stuff. And Ben, my editor, Ben Badiou, I wasn't thrilled with some of the dialogue, and I didn't really feel like I had covered the scene exactly the way I should have. So we kind of futzed it and kind of stayed really tight. We kind of blew the frame up, stayed tight on Millie, and let sort of the other characters' voices just become sort of like a background thing until Ryler pushes her way in, and it ended up really sort of working quite well. So that little moment, I bring it up because it's sort of a testament to the things that you really can fix in post and the things that you really can fix with some good editing and some good sound design.
It smells like hot dog water.
So of course we had to rig that branch. It was never there. I actually don't think that tree was there. So we brought that in. Hooray for greens. These kids at this high school were freaking out whenever they would see Vince Vaughn. It was really fun. Like, they would all congregate in different areas. And of course they were very respectful and quiet when we were shooting and stuff, but it was just really funny when he would finally turn and wave to them and they would all start like screaming and cheering and waving. I was just like, it's gotta be so weird to be a movie star, but fun.
Hello? Oh. Wait, are you?
So this was kind of a funny thing too. Michael and I, when we were writing this was the one kill in the movie that we just couldn't crack. We knew we wanted to kill Ryler, but we knew we were kind of stuck in this locker room location, and we were like, well, how are we gonna do it? Is it like a lacrosse stick? Is it a barbell? And we just kind of kept using different placeholders and never quite landing on anything, and it was really frustrating. And then I think we settled on a lacrosse stick, and we started to move forward with that. And then I had another one of my weird epiphanies, my murder epiphanies, because I started to notice cryo chambers popping up a lot, generally in sports medicine, and knowing that a lot of football teams, college football teams, and now even high school football teams utilizing this kind of technology and these sort of therapeutics that are really sort of advanced and expensive. But like, high school football in a lot of places, at least here in America, is a big fucking deal. And communities will throw a lot of money at resources like that. So it didn't seem like a crazy idea to have a cryo chamber in this locker room. And so that's when I just had the idea that, like, what if, and you're about to see it, what if the butcher led Ryler to the cryo chamber and then locked her inside and then just cranked it to the max and froze her to death. And it's funny because the idea, the actual original idea for this particular gag came when I personally went to one of these places and did this, and it was really fucking cold and really uncomfortable. And I ran into somebody at this place that I went to, and it was someone that I don't particularly like. And I made sort of like an offhand joke after this person went in for their session. I made a joke to the person that worked there that if they could, I would pay them extra to lock them in there and freeze them to death. And so that's where the idea for this particular kill came from. Again, this was one of those things where I wrote it and I wasn't sure if we'd ever pull it off because it was complicated and expensive. It involved the actor being in makeup and looking frozen and being super still, and then also transitioning into some really complicated CG work. But it turned out awesome. And so a big, big shout out and a thank you to Ingenuity. They were our effects house, and they did all the work in this movie and on the Happy Death Days, and they did a really cool job with that. I think it looks awesome, and it's a really funny, weird death.
Miss Kessler. I'm speaking to you, Miss Kessler.
So a lot of people ask me what is it that draws filmmakers, especially the horror filmmakers, to high schools, to teenage sort of high school settings, and why that world, why that tableau? And I think, I always say that I do feel like being in high school is, in many ways, and for many people, not for everyone, but for kids who are a little bit more on the fringe, it's a horror movie. And high school was a horror movie for me in many ways. And so I think it's also just such a time in your life that's really wrought with just sort of heightened emotions. And so it's a really fun sandbox to play in. And I think everybody has an asshole teacher like Mr. Bernardi at some point. So a lot of the fun stuff in this movie is sort of, it's kind of revenge fantasy stuff that we got to play out here.
She's acting weird.
She was almost killed last night, Nye. Maybe we let her be weird for a day.
I'm just worried about her.
Nyla, don't freak out.
This was one of my favorite sequences in the movie. It was so much fun to shoot. Pay attention to Vince Vaughn right here. He ate shit for real. Again, didn't blink, didn't stop, just kept going because he's the best. We had to be really careful with that stunt because even when you're padded, you could still really hurt somebody when you kick them that hard in the balls. I think a lot of people take for granted like how risky a lot of these things are, and actors really do put themselves out there to get the stuff that you want. They're very brave people.
It's me, it's Millie.
What kind of sick fuck are you?
Does he know our name?
Stop running, please.
Stay the fuck away from us!
But going back to this, just a very complicated, for a small movie again, a complicated sequence to shoot. You know, we only had one day to shoot this whole sequence. So we just did not have a second to spare. You know, you've got to be really prepared. And I think it's a ton of fun. It's a ton of fun. I had a much bigger fight planned in here. Like I think on the page I described it as like a Avengers, like a Marvel Avengers showdown. You know, when you're writing shit, you're like, this is gonna be huge. And then you realize you have, you know, one day to shoot it and it's not. But it's really effective and it's fun. And I think it really gets the point across. But again, you know, we worked really closely with our stunt coordinator, Mark Grainer, who's an awesome guy, and worked really closely with Vince. Vince is a very physical actor and he's done a ton of stunts over the course of his career. And so Vince had a lot of great ideas and a lot of input in terms of how we wanted to block a lot of the fighting in this particular sequence.
Okay, everyone's tired. We've done lots of hitting. It's time to talk.
And then, of course, we have this dance, which was really fun watching. You know, we had a choreographer who worked with Vince and Catherine so that they both could get these moves down. And one of my favorite things, I have the video somewhere on my phone of all the rehearsals that they did together, and it was really, really funny to watch.
What's your favorite movie?
I tell people it's Eternal Sunshine, but it's Pitch Perfect too.
TV show?
Sabrina.
But part of the fun of these movies, you know, when you do a body swap movie is, of course, you get to these classic beats where it's like the character has to convince someone that they are who they really are, even though, you know, they look different. So, you know, we'd written this dance number, but then Vince and Celeste and Misha, our actors here, they came up with this handshake. Like, they went kind of like when they were just hanging out, like while we were setting up, and figured out this little handshake. And I'm so thrilled that they did, because it became something that was really, I think, hit the whole thing home in a much bigger way. Because I feel like if the sequence had just ended with the dance and that was enough, you know, and the others, you know, Woody ends up sort of revealing just personal details, like, it would have worked. But I think the handshake was like the button that it needed. So that was great.
But in the exact same spot, the left shoulder. And then late last night, I kept hearing the dagger's name, like this weird, like whispering in my...
Incidentally, the bathroom stall, it's filled with really filthy, horrible things. I drew a lot of them and wrote some of these. It was, again, really fun to kind of tuck in funny little weird details into the bathroom here.
Number 5. Think we're past labels.
This is ridiculous. You guys got to see this. This is like a floppy anteater.
This it?
I feel like we had to change this website on this phone like 400 times because of legal reasons. It's one of the biggest drags of making a movie is clearances. And I always really feel I take great pity on the people who have to manage this stuff, because it's not fun. It's super tedious and time consuming.
To read Spanish.
Nobody pays attention in that class.
Why don't we get Senora Cañenas to translate it?
Santa Madre de Dios.
So, Spanish class, Senora Cayenes. This was another fun one. I had a very, very religious and superstitious Spanish teacher in high school. And so I kind of modeled this character after her. And it was fun because, again, we're playing in Tropeville. And so this actor, her name's Maria. And Maria and I, when we talked about this role, I just said, go full telenovela on this part. Like, I think you should have a ton of fun, because we, again, are sort of winking at the audience here.
It says here, if the sacrifice is not successful, the souls of the two persons are swapped and the change becomes
That painting, by the way, on the bottom left corner behind her was like an actual painting that was in the hallway of this high school. It was like one of the students' paintings, and they gave us permission to use it because it was so weird and creepy and awesome. I drew this. This is my amazing artwork. The bleeding anus. And then I drew this one, the Millie Kessler as a cock gobbler. I drew the face and the dick there.
I'm not a cock gobbler.
And it made me laugh that she's, you know, Millie's sitting there sort of kind of snickering and laughing at all the sort of gross things that boys do, only to discover that there's this whole secret world in these stalls where guys talk about girls in the school, because guys are, you know, usually kind of dicks in high school.
You like being scared?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it was gonna be so.
This was another one of those bits where we thought we were prepared to shoot this, and the rig that we had to do this pea stain the first time did not work. For some reason, it just could not penetrate that sounds gross and weird. Couldn't permeate, maybe is a better word. But it wasn't soaking through the sweatpants enough, and so you could barely read it. So we had to go back and shoot it again on another day. At least that insert of the pea stain blooming. So, you know, sometimes getting a weird pea shot is hard.
He's here somewhere. He's wearing my body and he's wearing my face. He's like a wolf in sheep's clothing. And if we don't capture him first, God knows how many people he's gonna kill.
What kind of a name is that? Stupid name. Miss Kessler.
So now we're coming up on our next, one of our bigger set pieces in the film. This was a lot. And again, you know, one day. I think we had one day to shoot this. And there's a lot going on. But, you know, we have this, there's this one sort of big kill, which I'm going to start talking about it now because it was a big process. Because ultimately this rig that she's about to use right here, this saw, this table saw, you know, this doesn't really exist in the real world. It would be highly unsafe, but it was something that I knew that I really wanted. And so we had to build this table and this saw, and it's a real saw. And we had different blades. So, you know, when actors were close to it, they could be safe. And then sometimes we just shot stuff without the blade at all, and it just became a VFX shot. But this whole bit from, you know, the stabbing in his neck, which we're going to be coming to soon, and then ultimately sort of the finale of this particular set piece with Alan Ruck. Just again, for our budget level, our limited schedule, trying to do really complicated kills like this it's definitely tough business. And there was a point where it was suggested that maybe we just try and do something else, that we just, you know, that we kind of abandon ship and just figure out a different kill because it was going to be too expensive, too time consuming, and that no one really felt like we were going to pull it off. And it was one of those things that, like, I just wanted it so badly for the film. And so I just kept fighting for it, and we kept grinding away at it and just bringing more and more people into the process. And then we finally got this, which is fucking amazing and so gross. It's so good and so gross. So it's just a case of, like, you know, sometimes you can't give up on a good idea, on a good gory idea, because it's worth it.
Fuck off, piggies.
Yeah, be getting out of wood shop. Whoa. What am I wearing? Stop right there. Hurry! Hurry! Go, 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 go! Get in the car!
What's wrong with it? It's a piece of shit. What do you want from me?
Guys!
Hey.
Go!
Suspect spotted in a shit heap, headed west from the high school. Why can't I just have a normal life? Calm down. Don't tell me to calm down, Nyla. I just turned 18. I could go to prison.
Nyla, can you scoot your seat up just a little bit?
Okay, we need a plan. They saw us with her, so they're gonna be looking for us now.
Now, could you move up a little more?
We need to get you a disguise, Mel. You can't be walking around in those clothes with that face. Everyone knows who you are.
Good plan. Nyla, could you just do just a little teeny, just a little bit more?
You good, Mel?
Yeah, much better.
Suspect spotted with 2 youths, teenagers, 1 black female, 1 white. Excited. Heading towards the northwest corner of town.
Hey, what the fuck? Are you kidding me?
Shit! It's the police. Oh my God. It's Shar.
Oh, up ahead. Turn left.
This is our little mini car chase, and this was a lot of fun to shoot. This car, we had 2 of these little cars, these little blue cars, and they were constantly breaking down on us. Like, I wanted the car to be shitty, but it sucks when it's actually shitty. My favorite license plate of all time, by the way. Another little sneaky joke. Not that sneaky, I guess, in the end. But this location was amazing. I couldn't believe that it existed. We barely had to dress it. It just looked like this, and they let us shoot there. I couldn't believe it. Often on smaller movies, you just kind of have to make such weird, like you start out writing something like big box store and then you end up in like a tiny, tiny weird mom and pop shoe store. And we actually got to shoot in a big box store with, by the way, I think this was their wallpaper. Like this location actually looked this Pepto-Bismol-y, which was incredible. We did again have to get it cleared, which is crazy. So we had to like wait and get clearance on the wallpaper, whoever designed it, but then we did, and so we could shoot in there.
What do you say? Nope. No, actually,
And then we had to put in our own special doors though,
Second opinion, how is the fit?
because I wanted them to have slats in them so that it was more credible that they could speak to each other and hear each other clearly.
My husband a pink polo one year for Christmas.
This is a very complicated scene, not in execution, but in tone. And it's something that I like to do a lot in my movies, which is, you know, I mix my tones. And even though the movie is light and ridiculous and funny and gory and all those things, I do like to have a little emotional weight to these movies. I think it makes them different from a lot of other films because people are not typically this sentimental in a gory horror comedy.
Listen to me, Debbie Downer. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to share all that with you. You're trying to buy a polo for God's sake.
But ultimately, the movies are about these characters' journeys, and Millie's journey in this movie is part of her struggle is this relationship she has with her mom, and how she feels smothered, but also she's so codependent that she can't really tell her mother that she wants to have some freedom. And this just, the body swap of it all, it felt like it provided this perfect opportunity for these two characters to share very personal things with each other because they believe they're talking to strangers when in fact they're actually talking, you know, it's mother and daughter actually talking to each other. And they're both struggling with a really painful loss. And it's another thing that I return to a lot of my movies, just sort of the loss of a loved one, specifically the loss of a parent.
Some space.
And again, because my movies tend to be quite personal, you know, I lost my dad when I was 16 in high school. And so I really related to Millie here and what she was going through. And often I think a lot of kids are caretakers.
She'll be graduating high school.
And they try to sort of actually support and prop up their parents when they're going through things like this. And that's definitely Millie's story here. But I really enjoyed shooting this scene, and I was really proud of the work that Vince and Katie did here because they did not...
She loves you.
You know, they really went for it. And then they still managed to do
You're so easy to talk to.
this, which is like a pivot, like, which is really tough. It's really tough to write. It's harder as an actor to pull it off, which is you go from this very emotional scene and then you just kind of almost hairpin turn into stuff that's actually quite comedic, and yet it still, for me at least, feels pretty seamless.
I haven't even seen you.
It's another thing that I like to do in my films, which is to sort of like allow people to feel something and go somewhere emotional, but then, you know, we're gonna still be funny and we're gonna still be gross. So that's kind of the ride that I like to go on.
That was totally
And so what I'm saying is, you know,
And Vince and Katie, both being A++ actors, did some really good improv here. So Vince is just kind of riffing right now. And I'm sitting there. And this is always the challenge, too, for us behind the cameras because, you know, actors start to go off on their own things and really funny stuff starts to happen. And you have to keep your mouth shut and not laugh out loud so that you don't fuck up your own take. But that was one of those bits that it just kind of came out of nowhere and I loved it. So I wanted it to stay in the movie. So what you're about to see next is, drum roll, Aaron Rodgers, The Mask, the Halloween mask. Obviously I needed a mask for this. Michael and I had scripted John Goodman, and through a friend had reached out to John Goodman and said, will you please allow us to use your face as a scary Halloween mask a la William Shatner and Halloween, because that was sort of the inspiration for this. And, you know, John is a super cool guy and a good sport, but I just don't think he really understood what we were trying to do. And it felt very abstract, I think, to him. And so Aaron Rodgers is a really cool guy. And he said yes. He let us do this. And it's great because it pays off later in the film. It was one of those happy coincidences and a change that I had to make, and it ended up being the best possible change, because you'll see later in the film that we pay off that mask. So I was really thrilled with that. And so thank you, Aaron Rodgers. You're a cool guy, and you have a lot of fans. So thank you.
And where are we gonna pull that off with Larkin's curfew?
The old mill. No one would look there.
Hell yeah, that's genius.
Not bad.
So now we're in this miniature golf location. So originally this was scripted as a bowling alley, and we had an issue with the bowling alley that we were going to shoot in, and so we had to pivot pretty last minute. And I started to scour the outskirts of Atlanta because I was like, I've got to find a place that has a personality and that was visually interesting. And then I found this place, and it was an actual miniature golf course that is like a haunted house. So, and it was we pushed the blacklight a lot further, and our art department, they really added a lot to this place. But this is a real thing. This is a real place. It's a spooky little miniature golf place. It's a husband and wife. This was like their dream, was to open a place like this. And I fell madly, madly in love with it. I loved the sort of the labyrinth aspect of it. I love that it's spooky. I love that it's all the black light and the way that it plays with sort of the light and the color. It just felt different and unique and quirky. And I kind of was laughing to myself when we were shooting this, because I thought, anyone who watches this movie is going to just think we built this as, like, this is just some sort of weird set. But if you go to Atlanta, you can find this place, and you too can go miniature golfing. It was a fun location. It was really great too, because during lunch, everybody went in and played skee ball and all these other arcade games. It was pretty awesome.
Booker.
But shooting with blacklight is definitely a challenge. And again, I have to thank Laurie and his team for pulling this off, because it looks pretty cool. So yeah, grim golf. I think that's what we called it in the film. So we added a lot of the cobwebs and these skeletons.
Hey, Millie? Hey, where are you?
So we are, again, I talk a lot about actors doing their own stunts. And a lot of it is sort of a combo deal. Catherine, her stunt double, Kelly, who's amazing. She doubled for Jessica Roth in the Happy Death Day movies, and she was Catherine's stunt double. So she does a lot of some of the bigger, trickier things. But Catherine was really game for stuff. But I bring this up again because this stunt right here, that's really Vince, and that was really Uriah. And Uriah was padded up, but he told Vince, he was like, I want you to really go for it. I want you to slam the fuck out of me. And he did it, and he did it twice. And in the take that ended up in the movie, he knocked him so hard into that wall that it actually popped a door open, and you can kind of see it in the sequence at the end of the sequence there. This door kind of starts to swing open, and that was just because the sheer force that Uriah's body hit that wall with popped that thing open.
He's even gorgeous when he's unconscious.
But the two of these guys were just amazing. Just Vince jumping through and breaking through that wall, and Uriah knocking into the other one. It was pretty cool. Again, also a little weird behind the scenes tidbit thing here.
It's okay. Look,
Uriah had a stomach bug or something going on when we shot this scene. So this poor guy was on the verge of vomiting this entire time. And when we weren't rolling, he would go off into we had like a small kind of holding room for him to kind of keep him separated from the other actors because we were concerned that this could be something that he could actually give to other people. And I would kind of go in and check on him and like see how he was doing. And he was like so pale and sickly. And I felt so bad for this guy. But he ended up saying that he really used it for the scene to really kind of tap into this sort of sense of panic and confusion. So I am grateful that he pushed through because he is really good in the scene.
The point is that you've never seen me dressed like that, right? Do you like that? It doesn't matter. I feel like I'm giving you a lot of information and you literally just woke up.
So coming up to what's about to transpire, I was faced with the reality of, okay, so now Millie has to convince another character that she is who she is. And what I always try to find, at least in the writing process, is sort of like, how can I approach this, a similar beat? Because we already did this beat, right? We did it in the cafeteria, in the kitchen. So how can I do it in a way that's different? And I thought about, the fact that Millie has a crush on Booker. And so I thought it was just this idea of a poem, of reciting a poem to Booker, that Millie has to expose something that she's kept hidden, this crush on him, and this thing that she did in order to prove that she really is inside this man's body. And so it's a really cool scene because I love that she has to be vulnerable to prove a point. And it was nice because it's just a different way to do this kind of a scene. And I love scenes that sort of operate on a bunch of different levels, that are accomplishing a bunch of different goals at the same time. And this kind of really does help start to push this little sort of mini love story that's unfolding in the movie.
It was anonymous.
I don't know why I did it. I just was, it was just stupid.
You sad fucking cunt.
Another funny aside, Catherine, who again was a trooper for just sitting tied up in a chair for so many hours, because we shot this and there's some other stuff coming up where she's still in the chair. So she was tied up to a chair for a couple days, but she had a sock stuffed in her mouth over and over and over again, and I felt so bad that there was this weird, funny, this cool dress that she had her eye on that had poodles all over it, and it was like on Etsy or something. And so I was like, if you just, it was more of an apology gift. I was like, I'm buying you this dress because I feel bad that I made you eat a sock for so many hours. So she got a cool poodle dress out of it as a thank you for letting me torture her. Something that I try to keep things light and fun on set because it's really hard work and the hours are long, and sometimes it's fun to just do stupid things, and you buy your actor a poodle dress.
No, he's right. Someone needs
Hopefully they're happy.
keep an eye on him just in case.
What, me?
It's yours.
This is one of those we're in a tiny fucking kitchen
You'll be fine.
and having to cover 4 characters, which is always a little bit tricky, but you jam in there and you get it done. And we shot this super fast. We had no time. I think we had 30 minutes to get this little scene done. So now we shot this at Tyler Perry Studios in Atlanta, which is a massive, massive compound. I think it was like a military base originally, and then Mr. Perry bought it and expanded it. It's really big. It's beyond impressive. That man is shockingly impressive. This huge, huge enterprise that he's built here. But it was great. It was a great location. And this was as scripted. The interior of this police station was exactly as written. So it was another happy coincidence that we found this and that it worked out so well. Because it feels like the perfect small town jail to me, police station.
He kidnapped us. He made us drive him. I escaped, but he followed me here.
Wait, he's here?
Outside behind the station.
Okay, just stay here, okay? Hide under my desk. Okay. Go.
That's so crazy.
But, you know, I have to admit, in a really strange way, that
Be careful, budding filmmakers. Be careful about what you pick, because sometimes the things that you pick that seem cute and funny are just end up becoming nightmares. I talk about this car a lot. So the car, you know, apart from it breaking down all the time, it's a tiny, compact car. And when you stage scenes in a tiny car, you are limiting yourself unless you have like special picture cars that like have the doors that are removable and blah, 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 blah. So this was a really hard scene to shoot because of the limited sort of coverage space that we had and the ability to maneuver in this car, and then also to light. I know this was a bitch to light. It was simple yet complicated.
And in there. And you are a lot stronger than you think.
So what would Joshua watch? Turns out it's The Real Housewives. Originally, I had scripted Riverdale, but that was a complicated thing to deal with. So we got The Real Housewives, which is perfect.
That nasty stare does not scare me.
And our actor, Misha, who's amazing in this. Oh, wait, this is my voice. I'm the announcer. It's my cameo. I don't do on-screen cameos, but you'll usually hear my voice in every movie I make somewhere. That's as good as my acting gets. Sorry. Misha is a really good actor, and this was a scene that really felt like it could go either way.
Mom?
It was either going to be really funny and quirky and interesting, or it was just going to be a dud. And both these actors, Joshua and his mother, I think really make this scene
I'm sorry?
sing. It's a really fun, wacky scene.
Role-playing.
Like a game?
And then again, Catherine does so much with so little here. Like there's so many funny moments in the scene that are really just her reactions to their conversation.
Millie? She's method, never breaks character. Naughty girl.
And as you can see, a sock in her mouth and duct tape, which, by the way, was duct tape that had a Velcro strap on the back, so we could remove it easily and quickly. Otherwise, you know, we were gonna tear, 18 layers of her flesh off her face trying to do this.
Yes. Yes, it is.
This is another scene where if you look around the room carefully, there's a lot of funny detail stuff. I felt like Joshua and his mom were super close, like almost like best friends. And so if you look over her shoulder, there's one of those really awful, like, live, love, laugh photos of the two of them just laughing. And then there's you'll see it coming up soon. There's a figurine on the table. It's real quick, but it's Josh and his mother with their hands pressed to each other. And it was one of those, I was at the mall in Atlanta. I was actually going to see a movie, and I walked by this place that does those like 3D prints of people. And so I told our production designer, I was like, please, can you get it made of them? Because that's such a funny detail. And again, it just speaks to like a lot of the kind of small, tiny things that I like to put in movies, because I think it's just, I don't know, it makes the world feel a little bit more full and realistic to me, even though it's a silly, heightened movie. Like the bong. There's a bong in that evidence locker. Like, I just think it's hilarious that like these local cops like confiscated somebody's bong. It's so stupid.
Yes, I'm sure he did. I swear he took us and
Nyla? What the fuck is going on?
So this was another complicated bit that starts to unfold in this police station because eventually we're gonna have a lot of characters in this place, and it's not terribly big, and there's a lot of coverage involved.
Now.
So these are the scenes that take a while to shoot, just because you've got to cover so many people. But I love this. I feel like this is a section of the movie that really is cooking. Like, it's got a lot going on, and it's really fun. This is probably one of my favorite scenes in the whole movie. Michael and I cackled a lot when we wrote it.
So far away.
And again, it's a great scene for two reasons. You know, we had originally intended to shoot this with full coverage. You know, we were gonna do stuff over the shoulder, and then at the last minute, we decided like it'd be cool if Booker actually just gets into the back seat with Millie to kind of make it feel more intimate. And then we did this take, and there's just the slightest push happening here. It's very subtle, but it works. It's a perfect oneer. It's just a great, simple two-shot. And sometimes my favorite things in my movies are the most simple, and this was one of them because it was all about this performance, and there isn't a false note in this whole scene. And I love the scene so much because it really speaks to, I think, a bigger theme in the movie, which is looking beyond the surface, you know, that these two people are connecting even though Millie is in the wrong body. This is not the body that she's physically comfortable being in, but Booker is able to see past the facade, and he still sees Millie, the person that he knows, and that he likes.
Technically.
And so it's an oddly sweet scene, and it's funny, when we did our first test screening, we only did one test screening of this movie actually, which was like right before the pandemic started, so it was kind of stressful and weird. But this was a favorite scene for the audience as well. You get these little cards, you know, after, I don't know if you've ever been to a test screening or if you've participated in one, but you know, you always have to list like your favorite scenes and then your like least favorite scenes, and this was top of the list for almost everyone.
Millie, where the fuck have you been? I have been calling you all day.
What? I've been calling you too. That is not your sister.
So here we go. The characters are starting to pile up, and more are coming.
I don't need your help, okay? I don't need your fucking help. Back the fuck up.
Sure.
So this is a case of, whenever I watch the scene, there's like a pang of like frustration because, you know, I wanted to cover Vince diving behind that desk. So I wanted to actually cover him sort of landing and hiding there. And we didn't have time. We couldn't shoot it. And so often, you know, what I find myself doing when you make a Blumhouse movie, the deal that you make is, you know, you get to have a lot of creative control. You really do get to shoot the movie that you want to make, as long as you can make it within sort of the parameters of a certain budget. And often you will sort of start your day and you'll sit down with your DP and your AD, and you'll look at your shot lists and you'll go, okay, well, this is not gonna happen. Like, we're not gonna achieve this day unless we start cutting shots. And so it becomes sort of a really tough game of like, okay, what are we gonna kill here to make sure that we actually achieve and make our day without sacrificing the essential parts of a scene. And so that was one of those bummer choices where you just have to give something up in order to get the whole thing done, because we only had so much time at this location. It's not like we could just come back another day. Like, we had to be out of there. So this is what we did.
Your sister's a shitty driver.
That's not Char, that's the butcher, and he's got the doula. Okay, come on, guys, let's go.
So this shot is actually running in reverse right now. So the original way that we shot this, we started in the close-up of Millie, and then with our crane, we pulled out over. But it just gives you a certain measure of control when you're doing certain kinds of shots if you actually just run them in reverse, and it looks really cool. And it's pretty seamless.
So you think you're this hot shit now, huh? You know, I've never
Again, I should thank all these extras who turned out in the freezing cold, because this warehouse that we shot in was just a husk of a building, so it's freezing in there. And you know, they're like hanging out with you like all night long, you know, so everybody's really tired, and they were all incredibly nice people. Super cool. So thank you.
There is no
Extras.
way we're not helping you, Mel. We're in this together.
13 minutes left.
Well, you're the butcher forever.
Come here, Ramirez. Set a timer.
I learned a lot about
Okay.
the Apple Watch because I don't have one. It's like sometimes you like want to put certain sounds and things in the movie, and then you find out, but that's not what that actually does. That's not the sound that thing makes, and so you've just got to kind of rewire your brain to accept that, because you can't actually change things like that in a movie, or you'll get sued.
What do you know? Looks like we got a little private party going here, huh?
Are you good at math, Millie?
So this sequence, you know, is speaks directly to the sort of revenge fantasy aspect of the movie. There is an Easter egg tucked in here, and you may have to look at the end credits to figure out what that Easter egg is, but it's on their jackets. That's my clue I'll give you. I don't want to go any further with it. But yeah, you know, sort of playing on the sort of idea of, you know, a young girl who's being threatened by three guys at a party who have pretty shitty, dark intentions. And, you know, I love watching. This is the weird thing about the movie, which is you're usually rooting for the butcher. You know, like almost everyone who dies in this movie strangely deserves to die. Oh, that was my foot tripping. That was an insert that we shot after the fact. So that's my physical cameo in the movie. But yeah, a lot of what goes on in this movie is kind of revenge fantasy stuff. And it's weird when your antagonist sometimes operates like a protagonist, or at least someone that you're rooting for. But it's sort of the perverse fun of the movie.
Hey, what's up? Have you seen Millie? Millie.
So this is Magnus, who plays Phil, and this is another kind of reoccurring theme in my movies. There's always some douchey white guy who can't dance. And I remember when I met Magnus during the audition process, and he came in and he actually like did a dance like in the audition room and like just owned it. And it was like terrific and terrible. And he did it with such like abandon and confidence. And I was like, all right, this guy's definitely got the part. But he's a really cool guy. He was really fun to work with.
Where is she? You said you knew where she was.
She's somewhere. Millie.
So this is another kind of cool, complicated little gag that we pull off here. And another
I don't have time for this.
situation where a majority of what you're seeing is practical, but with some small CG enhancements.
So self-aware. Bravo.
So we've got an actual dummy of Magnus's face, but then we also were able to animate the other side of his face so that you're actually seeing both at the same time. You're seeing the dummy and you're seeing the real actor's face. And it's super fucking gross, and I love it.
Get out of here. What are you doing? Go!
And now we get into the fight. And a lot of this stuff, again, a lot of this fight is really Vince and Catherine, you know, duking it out. And again, with a pretty limited schedule, it's really impressive what we were able to pull off. And I love this location. It has so much personality. it just looks really cool on screen. Sometimes the grungiest and dingiest places end up looking the best, especially on camera when you light them well. So I love this bit. So one of the cool things about this location too is, you know, it was an old rail, I think this is where they built trains back in the day. And so there was this long connecting path from the main building, which is where our actors are running right now, into this other part of the building, which was super cool because it had, it's like these old trees growing inside of the building that had just kind of broken through the ground over time and had taken over. And so there's a lot of character and personality in there in the space. This was a tough night. We had a lot of technical issues when we shot this sequence. And sometimes as a director, you know, you try and get all the pieces and the parts that you want. And sometimes it feels like you're sort of riding a bucking horse that just doesn't want to obey, you know? And it's like the movie itself becomes very unruly. And we were fighting a lot of factors. We had terrible weather. Again, this was probably actually our coldest night in the entire shoot. It had rained. There was mud everywhere. You know, it was miserable. We had a lot of gear issues. And so I remember walking away, going home from this night, feeling kind of pretty bummed out. Because I thought, oh man, like I blew it. I fucked this up. And it's like one of the most important bits in the movie. But when I sat with Ben, our editor, and watched it again, watched the assembly, I was pleasantly shocked that, you know, lo and behold, all the pieces were still there.
Who's your favorite athlete?
And so again, sometimes things that you're shooting feel terrible and wrong, and then you kind of get it together and you're like, okay, this is not this is not as bad as I thought it was going to be. And then other times you think you're killing it, and then you watch it and you're like, oh no, I am crazy. It didn't work. But I'm very grateful and glad that this worked out. By the way, really because of COVID, we did not have the opportunity to do any reshoots at all on this film. There were some things that I had wanted to do, just sort of enhancements, but you know, this is a movie that exists entirely without reshoots, which is rare, I feel like, in Hollywood. We did not reshoot an ending. We didn't do any of that stuff. This is the movie that we shot the first go-round. So I think that's a testament to everybody involved that we were able to pull it off without having to go back. Because, by the way, even if we wanted to go back, we couldn't, because we couldn't afford it.
So, what are you gonna tell the cops?
A version of the truth, I guess. Let's just hope nobody ever gets their hands on that thing again.
What?
Speaking of challenges, it started to rain on this night. So you can almost see like just this light drizzle in the air, which ended up working out for us because it didn't present a real continuity issue in the end, and it looks pretty cool, but it's just the biggest stress on any movie is just weather, you know, and we end up often shooting in places that have complicated weather, and so you're always just staring at your phone. I don't know if you are aware of this app called Dark Skies, but it's this app that everybody stares at all the time and stresses over because you're like, oh my God, where are those clouds going? Is it gonna rain all day? What's it gonna do? So yeah, we had a little bit of rain, but it worked out and looked good. And it kind of matches the mood of this shot too. This next bit was this shot here,
His pulse and heart rate are weak.
I think was one of the few true one-take wonders outside of the car scene that I spoke about earlier with Vince and Uriah in the back seat. This, I think, was the only other shot that we did where this was the very first take, and it was the only take I needed. It worked out perfect. That's always like a huge relief when that happens. It's really nice.
I'm tired. I'm gonna hit the sack.
Night, Char. Hey. I love you, sis.
So now we're into the sort of finale of the movie, and we're kind of tying up some of our emotional stories here. Story between Millie and her mom, and also sort of the relationship between these three women. And sort of when we first met them, we could just sort of feel how fractured they were, and now they've really come together. It had been suggested at one point that we didn't need any of this, that the movie kind of ended where, Millie gets, she gets the guy and she gets her kiss and she's back in her body, and what else do we need? But Michael and I really felt like Millie needed to succeed in her body, because so much of her journey in this film is about her, discovering things about herself and feeling empowered being in somebody else's body. And she sort of takes all these risks and makes all these sort of emotional leaps while she's in Vince Vaughn's body. And it was really important to us that we prove that she is stronger physically and emotionally in her own skin. And so that's why we created this sort of second ending when we were writing the movie. It felt like the right bookend to me. And so even though tonally, it's not comedic, it's not like, wacky, it gets pretty serious and gets pretty intense, it still felt like the proper way to end the movie. And it's funny because I was grateful that we wrote this the first go-round, because it almost sort of feels like the kind of ending you would end up adding later, in reshoots to really kind of drive it home. So I'm really happy with the way this movie ends. Incidentally, this house that we were shooting in, the Kessler house, was owned by the nicest, the cutest little old lady I've ever met in my life. I wanted her to be my grandmother. I wanted her to be my adoptive grandmother. She had like little bowls of candy out for people. She was so cute, and she was so excited to have a movie shooting in her house. I don't know if she fully understood what was gonna happen in her house. And I've kind of it's one of those weird things where I sort of I want to watch the movie with her and then see how she reacts to stuff, because I don't know, she either might get a kick out of it or she might have a heart attack. But either way, I loved her. She was rad. It's one of the fun things of the job, are all the different kinds of people that you meet along the way. And I love it. I think it's so much fun to be around so many different kinds of personalities. Lots of fighting, lots of stunts, lots of breakables. This was intense stuff to do. But again, an experienced cast. Vince being really confident with his stunts and sort of really helping some of the other actors who haven't done as many stunts. He really was really good at sort of coaching people. He was great in that way. He was really kind and generous. In fact, all the actors were really generous with each other. And I love to see that. It makes it feel like a real community, and there's a real camaraderie there.
I understand why you feel so weak.
Catherine's double jointed. Her arm is bending in really weird ways in this scene. And I remember sitting at the monitor and wondering, is he breaking her arm? That looks really weird. But she is kind of double jointed and a pro golfer, legit pro golfer, highly competitive, ranked, I think. And I think it speaks to a lot of the stuff that she does in this movie, but it's kind of a weird interesting thing about her.
You know,
We were going to try and add a couple small things to this sequence, but COVID said no, and I think it's still okay. I think it works really well, and I love watching these three women kind of take this guy on, and of course Millie, she has to win, and she doesn't just win. She, does that to make certain that this guy is toast. And the other thing I love about filmmaking is, like this shot, like this, when I wrote this bit, when Michael and I wrote this bit, this was exactly what was in my brain.
I am a fucking piece.
And it's awesome. And then, of course, our end credit sequence, which I don't even know if I'm supposed to talk through this shit, but I'm going to. So, very cool company called Greenhouse did the credits. They did both sequences in my Happy Death Day movies as well. And I love them because they always come to the table with really cool ideas. And what I pitched to them was sort of this contrast between a young teenage girl's world and a killer's world. And so I loved this idea of peeling away these sort of sweet, cutesy images to reveal the horrors underneath, which I think is very on brand and on point for this movie. And it just looks really awesome and it really captures, I think, the tone of the movie. The sweetness, the gore, there's some humor in there. So I was really, 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 really happy with how this turned out. And I always love end credits because you just get to kind of sit back and appreciate all of the amazing people that you had the good fortune to work with. And I can honestly say this without crossing my fingers or, rolling my eyes, but like every single person that I worked with on this movie was great and fun and talented. So they make me look good and they make my job really fun. So I'm thankful to all of them. And that's that. That's Freaky. I hope I didn't bore the shit out of you, and I hope that the sound of my voice doesn't annoy you as much as it annoys me. So that's that. Thank you.